Time has elapsed. Senator Pratt.
Thank you. Today I rise to speak about an issue of significant importance, not only to my home state of Western Australia, but to workers right across our nation who rely on a strong and fair industrial relations system, and indeed their unions to protect them from being exploited. However, I'm sad to say that system is letting workers down. Maintenance workers in the mining town of Collie have been subjected to savage cuts to their wages and conditions after, in January this year, Griffin Coal, owned by the multinational company Lanco, applied to have the Griffin Coal maintenance agreement, enterprise agreement, terminated under a very rarely used section, number 225 of the Fair Work Act. So in June this year, the Fair Work Commission ruled in favour of Lanco and terminated the agreement, and indeed this decision was very sadly upheld on appeal. I'm here today to raise my objection to this decision and to say there is nothing fair about it. To call it a decision of the so-called Fair Work Commission in this case is an appalling reflection on it. This decision will see workers revert to award rates, and in this case it means wage cuts of up to 43% for local families. Many workers will see their wages drop to just above $40,000, and this is an unfathomable cut that will have a huge impact not only on these workers and their families but to the whole Collie community. Workers under this new arrangement are expected to work extra hours and more weekends and to do it for 43% less money. Over the last 18 months, these ordinary hard-working men and women of Collie have offered themselves pay cuts of nearly 20% for an even-time roster, but it is not in this case just about the money. They have traded this host of favourable conditions in an attempt to support Griffin Coal's focus on flexibility and improving their bottom line. Yet Griffin Coal have been absolutely uncompromising in their demands to cut wages and to force workers to work for longer hours. Griffin Coal's attitude to its workers and the families of Collie has been extraordinarily disappointing. Griffin Coal is owned by an international company, and in this case this company has shown absolutely no concern for the needs of the workers or indeed the whole town. If you think about it, these workers make a significant contribution to the community fabric in their time off, and that time off has been, and their rosters has been rapidly substantially reduced. And it is outrageous to think that all of this comes at a cost not only of a loss to the community fabric of the town, but for a loss of almost half their pay. So this dispute that's going on in the town of Collie is about protecting a community. This means the local sports club, the coaches on weekends, the local fire brigade, and indeed the time that families have to spend time together. Collie is a very typical Australian country town where these are the things that our community should value. Far from being a dominantly type FIFO mining community, here there is a mining community where people are able to embed their spare time in the community around them, and it is terrible to see this destroyed. Over the years, coal miners have invested many thousands of their own dollars and of their own wages for the betterment of the community Collie. So the prospect of such a large group of workers in the town having their pay slashed puts the Collie community under severe economic pressure. It's estimated that this decision will suck more than $13 million out of local businesses. The local economy is already suffering. House prices have dropped, and if you think about it, in a town that's dominated by a single industry, if you slash wages and conditions, then people are going to owe more on those houses than their able to pay with their slashed wages and conditions, but they're not going to be able to sell those houses because of the drop in market price. It's an appalling situation to put those families in. There are businesses closing and locals struggling to secure financial credit due to the instability and uncertainty in the town. So workers and the community should not have to suffer due to the financial mismanagement of large foreign-owned companies, as is happening in this case. Griffin Coal must consider the collie community and support the town that has supported them for such a long time. A pay cut and significant changes to roster with fewer weekends at home is simply, in this case, not good enough and not ever good enough. While this decision is absolutely unprecedented, we are indeed seeing trends across the country that suggest more and more large companies are seeking to undermine the hard-fought wages and conditions of Australian workers. Ruthless companies have put workers and communities at significant economic risk in the form of more insecure employment, and their actions are creating work environments where injury and illness cause downtime and lost production. As they place unfair stress onto workers, they risk mental health of the very people who have worked hard to deliver products and services for their business. So the workers at Griffin, supported by the AMWU, simply want to be able to negotiate a fair agreement with their employer. Employers should absolutely not be able to walk away from their responsibilities under an enterprise agreement and their obligation to bargain in good faith. Workers have a right in our industrial relations system to bargain collectively for an enterprise agreement, and both of these rights have been absolutely abused in this case. These are fundamental rights that underpin how our nation works and our democracy, and these decisions are sucking the life not only out of workers but also out of their communities. Australia should have bargaining practices that allow companies to compete on innovation, productivity, smart investment in people and in equipment. We don't want to see a system that creates a race to the bottom in wages. After all, what has been happening? While all this has been happening, where's Premier Barnett and the state Liberal coalition government been? They have been an absolute no-show in support for the collie community. The WA government has deserted these workers and allowed a multinational coal mining company to destroy this community. This government has no transition plan for towns like Collie and the local coal mining industry. It leaves families in the lurch and workers feeling very uncertain about their future in the town. We have in WA unemployment now at 6.3%, and the number of full-time jobs in WA continues to decline, and the WA government, after 8 years, has no jobs plan for Western Australia post the mining boom. And being post the mining boom was always an inevitability. I want to pay tribute to Collie member Mick Murray, who's a former coal miner himself and has been fighting tirelessly for these workers in Parliament and across the sector for the past 15 years. I want to acknowledge the hard work of the WA branch of the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union and for all unions standing up for their members and workers around the country. Thank you for your continuing support to stand up for WA workers. My heart today goes out to the maintenance workers at Griffin Coal, their families, their children, and indeed the whole collie community. And in this community, we've sometimes got multi-generational workers within one family that have been affected by this decision. It's indeed devastating. I want to pledge today that I will continue to fight for the rights of unions to collectively bargain and to fight for their members' rights. In enabling foreign multinational companies to use the Fair Work Commission in this way to rip off hard-working Australians, is this what the Turnbull government really meant when it said it was opening the country up for business? We need a government that will stand up for the everyday worker across this country, a government who will fight for workers and their families to live a decent life with fair pay, safe work and fair conditions. Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President.